Welcome back to War Thunder Weekly News. This week we had the Tokyo Game Show and 1.71 drop. First off, the Tokyo Game Show was a little underwhelming and rather strange at points, but there was a Q&A with Anton, the CEO of Gaijin, and some of the questions he asked were pointless, but three of them I found very insightful. The first question, when will naval ships be released? And the answer was, hope CBT this year. I think the key word in there is hope. From last we played, there's still a lot missing. Like, we don't even have complete trees or the idea of what a tree will look like. We also don't know what they have been doing since the last test. Who knows what they could be cooking up. Next question was rather broad, but very insightful. What is the complete form of War Thunder? And the answer was, online games will keep evolving. No current plan for final form. In short term, introduction of naval, World War mode, modern tanks. For Navy, soon we'll test light cruisers, maybe heavier ships later. Introduce more modern tanks. Introduce new nations for planes, most likely this year. I thought this was the question that carried the most weight, revealing cruisers and maybe bigger ships and another nation to be added, most likely France, and of course more modern tanks, which we kind of already knew. The last question, how is the progress for World War mode? The answer was early stage testing. CBT for squadrons starting in October, for casual players maybe in December. If you're down with World War mode, this should be very exciting. I'd link the full video, but it's part of a very long conference, DMM Games, most of which has nothing to do with War Thunder. And really there's no other information in the War Thunder segment either. But there will be a link to a Reddit post where a dude wrote down all of the questions of the Q&A. I'm most excited for start of the naval CBT and the light cruisers and maybe heavier ships. It really opens up on what kind of ships we could have, although it still doesn't give us an idea of what the final form of naval forces will look like. What I also thought was funny of this is it kind of proved that this one alpha tester guy who leaks stuff on some Russian website is right about some things. So I think I should take these leaks a bit more serious. Because right after this conference, there was another leak that happened of basically plans of what we're going to see in the future. Essentially, he said that Germany will receive some new heavy bombers, the Do-19, the AT-177, the Ju-89, the Ju-290, set to see not the 390, the Ju-287, the Me-264, and the HS-124. I'm really looking forward to the Do-19 because it's a very large pre-war bomber. I think it was only a prototype and it sucked and no one liked it, but whatever. There's apparently also this leak states that Italy will receive more German aircraft to thicken up its lines. All of the Regina series aircraft, that's the RE-2000 to the 2006, and apparently a lot of low to mid-tier bombers, which in my personal opinion are the best bombers. I really like the old early war, pre-war style they had to aircraft, so I'll be very much looking forward to those. So a bit of drama sparked up this week, well, a lot of drama actually. It seemed with the introduction of the new patch, adding 3 U.S. aircraft that people were very much anticipating. On top of that, there was also an event to unlock the XF-5F skyrocket. Gaijin had come up with this idea to help with issues with queue times and how certain tech trees are much more popular than other ones, leaving to some people to be in the queue for far too long. And typically what would happen is if there was enough people waiting too long, they would just throw them all together in a mixed battle, and everyone hates mixed battles. I'm not entirely hated of them. Like, they're pretty rare. Well, when they are pretty rare, I don't mind them because it's nice to go up against something new, and you never really know what you're going to run into because it's all the nations with all their airplanes. But I wouldn't only want to fly games like that. And Gaijin's proposal on how to fix the issue with long queue times, this idea to abandon the binding between individual nations in certain locations. They also were making it so which nation fights which nation is a bit more random. It's essentially attempting to turn air RB RB into tank RB, where it's the Axis blob and the Allies blob fighting out all over Europe and the Pacific. Initially, the way they explained this was very complicated, and nobody liked it, including I. I felt personally that just putting random teams on random maps is quite lazy, and if you're going to do things like that, you should at least make up some sort of excuse like they do with the alternate history things. Many people brought many complaints, one of which was that if you happen to be playing Germany and put on a Pacific map, you're naturally at a disadvantage to the Allies because you have no carrier-based aircraft, while they may have some. Now, landing with a non-carrier-based aircraft on a carrier can be done. It's not as easy as with a tailhook, but it's not too hard, really. I guess I'm making an immersion argument, but it's just nice flying a Zero in one of the historical Pacific battles, alongside other Zeros and maybe some other weird Japanese planes. I personally really hate that the United States and Britain are always paired together. It's just lazy, in my opinion. So since most people were very much against this, Gaijin went for an attempt too, and they really just reworded it. They also mentioned that Germany and Russia and whatnot will never be on the Pacific map. But they didn't entirely change anything. They explained how the proposal would work in a much better way, as opposed to removing the binding between nations and certain missions. Is now there are those certain missions, but there's also the possibility of having a random mission, say USSR versus Germany and Italy above the British Channel. The likelihood of having one of these mixed up missions is unclear. I'm still against this because I think Russia fighting Germany in places that Russia didn't fight Germany is a little dumb. What they did on this proposal is they pointed out every single mission for each combination of nations battling and what battle rating those maps are to appear at. And they kind of obviously pointed out a little of their own idiocy and why certain maps are so common. The most popular combination of nations is United States and Great Britain versus Germany and Italy. And it's pointed out that there are 3 maps that you will run into from the range of BR 2.3 to 6.7. And you could probably guess what those are. Sicily, Russia, and Norway. Now, using a little brain power, you could probably figure out why this is such a big issue. They jammed 4 nations into one possible selection. It is the most popular, and of the greatest range of battle ratings, they give it 3 maps. How this will be a good idea, I don't know. What they should really do is break that up and have it just be the United States versus Germany or Italy, singular, not bonded together. And thus, playing the UK, you will get different maps than you do when you play the US, opposed to how it is now, where they seem to always be bonded together, even though they state that they're not, but whatever. Another kind of idiotic thing that has been pointed out about how their current system works is it's historically incorrect. For example, Guadalcanal is a Great Britain versus Japan map, but the US fought at Battle of Guadalcanal. They really need to break up the multiple nations on one side thing. That's kind of what really brings forth this issue of only seeing the same map over and over and over again. A lot of them are also rather short-minded, I guess you could say, with things like Malta being an only 6.0 to 8.3 map. Even though that map would work perfectly fine with prop aircraft, it's for some reason in jet range. And historically, there's obviously no reason for Malta to be a jet map that they use. Instead of mashing all the nations together and having them fight on random maps, what they should do is reorganize what battle ratings and what nations play on what maps. People aren't tired of fighting the same enemy. They love fighting the same enemy. They're tired of fighting on the same map. A lot of these maps are terrible and biased towards one side. That's really what needs to be done here. Not this weird idea that Gaijin came up with to make it more like tanks. And yes, I know tanks is the cash cow and it's working great, but it's not because nations randomly fight each other. It's because people like tanks. They're much more simple to get a grasp of than flying an aircraft. Besides that drama, as I stated earlier, 1.71 was released and we got all the good stuff. And as usual, came along with it was a lot of bug fixes. Of the initial release, the only thing that I was really grateful for was the early Japanese tanks got their turret rotations fixed, so they are not nearly as slow as they used to. A lot of them were at 6 degrees per second and are now increased to like 15 degrees per second. Besides that, there was a bunch of flight model changes. The one I noticed the first was the Corsairs act different, but they are still rather powerful, and the first Corsair should not be at 2.7. And as usual, after the patch, people start noticing all the bugs. This time they started really freaking out, but as usual, Gaijin slowly comes out, notices them as well, and fixes them. There were some bugs about the MBT-70 and KPZ-70 that got fixed. There was more changes to certain vehicles later. What stood out to me the most was that the Nashorn and the Ferdinand had their fire rate increased from the 7 shots per minute to 9 shots per minute. So with a maxed crew, you can fire a round every 6.5 seconds, which is damn fast. Also, this was not announced anywhere, but there is now another bridge on Eastern Europe. It's cool. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you did not enjoy the video, don't hit that like button. Hit the dislike button. That's what you're supposed to do. If you want to see more, subscribe. I make these every Saturday. Well, Saturday night. They come out Sunday morning. If you want to be notified when I make new videos, sometimes I'll make random videos throughout the week, hit that bell icon and you should get a notification anytime I upload something. And besides that, I hope you have a great day.